I was just about ready to go back to the hotel and have some dinner. But out of my deep respect for Jaime Maussan, I decided to wait it out and say a few words to you people in conclusion of an outstanding program, which I've thoroughly enjoyed for the past 3 days. I want to say, first of all, how much I appreciate my friendship with Jaime Maussan. I've known Jaime for a number of years, and I've learned to respect his intelligence, his character, his go-get-em attitudes, his professionalism, but among the most important things about my respect for Jaime Maussan is he's a fellow warrior. I appreciate his courage. It takes courage to address some of the things Jaime Maussan has addressed over the years. And I've spent time in my own life in 2 wars. I fought in combat in Korea in 1951. I fought in combat in Southeast Asia and Vietnam in 1970. And I've seen courage. And I learned to respect it, and I respect Jaime Maussan's courage. So from one old warrior to another old warrior, Jaime, wherever you are, I salute you. I also want to say a word or two on behalf of the good people of Mexico. I've had the pleasure of coming to Mexico a number of times in the last few years at conferences here in Mexico City, Acapulco, Veracruz, various places. And I have been overwhelmed at the warmth and the love and affection that has been shown to me by the Mexican people. And I want to take this opportunity here, 2 months I have on this stage, to say to you, good people of Mexico, from my heart to your heart, thank you. Thank you. God bless you. Now, I feel very humble sitting on this stage, standing on this stage. I really don't know what I can say to add to what has been said over the past 3 days. Some of the outstanding speakers that you've had the pleasure to listen to for the last 3 days. What can I say to add to that? Not a hell of a lot, frankly. In the time I have, and I'm not going to take that much time tonight, I will share a few things with you that I have learned over the years. I have 81 years of experience on this planet. And if I tried to tell you the things I've seen and the things I've learned, we would still be here at this time next week. But there are some highlights that I think are important that I've learned over the years. I spent 41 years of my life in government service in the United States. 27 years on active duty in the United States Army, 14 more additional years working as a professional disaster preparedness and emergency manager for the Federal Emergency Management Agency. And I've had top secret clearance through most of those years. I've seen things I should not have seen, and I've been places I should not have been. And I've learned things that many people wish to hell I hadn't learned. But I think some of the things I've experienced, some of the things I've learned are important. And I'm going to share a few things with you tonight, and in doing so, I am continually violating my national security oath, which I took while I was on active duty. And I'm doing it because I believe it's important enough that things must be told. I've learned the secrets my government has been sitting on top of for 65 years. I've learned the things that my government is scared to death to share with its people, because many of us in government were scared to death of the things we learned. But ladies and gentlemen, I used to be a normal human being. There was a time that I considered myself average. I went to college for 2 years. I got married. I fathered 2 children. I fought in 2 wars. I'm on my 3rd marriage. I went through 2 divorces. I lost a child to suicide over the years. And in the beginning of my journey, I believed that I knew where I was, what world I belonged to, who I was as an individual, and I was relatively comfortable with that view of who I was, where I fitted in on this planet, in my country, among my fellow people. The journey I began 46 years ago changed my life so completely that my old worldview, my old world paradigm, crashed and crumbled around my knees. Dust. Everything I had been taught, everything I thought I knew, everything that I accepted as reality, I learned was not so. I learned that the history as we were taught, and old Eric von Daniken brings it up again, most of it was false. And much of it was damned lies. And I resented that, to know that I had been going through school, living in a world that was in a world of illusion. Everything I thought I knew, I found out I didn't know. And I was not prepared for some of the things that I learned, some of the experiences I've had. Losing your illusions and losing your old world paradigm is equivalent, I think, to standing naked under the stars at night, where you're looking up at 50 billion stars, and there you stand, alone, naked, and frightened. A lot of people aren't able to deal with that. A lot of people are scared to even face it or address it. I had no choice. Some of the experiences that I've had, and some of the places I've been, and some of the people I've met, and the things I've learned, had an impact on me that, as I said, I'm not the old human being that I used to be. I've come to a point in my life where I honestly feel alienated on planet Earth. I do not feel I belong here. I feel like I'm a stranger in a strange land. And so I say to you, in all honesty, that is one of the reasons why major governments on this planet are scared to death to tell the people the whole story of what they've learned, and who we are, and how we came to be here, and where we're going. I think many of you are prepared for this information. I think many of you are ready for this knowledge, or you wouldn't be here tonight. Some of the things I may say to you tonight you might find shocking, but you can handle it, I'm sure. When I retired from the military in 1976, we knew at that time that we were dealing with at least 4 if not more, highly advanced extraterrestrial civilizations. Now, these guys were not visitors. These guys are not just coming, on a lark. They're not tourists dropping by planet Earth just to say hi and, check into the local pubs and something. No. I was to learn over the years that the human race is a hybrid race. We were genetically manipulated 200,000 years ago by several incredibly advanced extraterrestrial intelligences. Now, that genetic manipulation has not ceased. It's still taking place. The program is still underway. Now, that's a shock. We were dealing with 4 different groups at that time. Now, the evidence is literally overwhelming, and it's still incredibly classified, that the United States government has a relationship with at least 2 of those extraterrestrial intelligences that are rather intimate. As I said, we're a hybrid race. We are an unfinished product. As some of our remote viewers have said, we've learned that we are a work in progress. But there's some good things about that. There is hope. Whether you believe it or not, we are making progress. We are in the midst of what I call a transition. It's more than that. I like to describe it as a transcendent transformation of the entire species. Not only are we being genetically manipulated to another form of life, but we are spiritually developing into a new race. The analogy I like to use is that humanity, us, all of us, are going through the final stages of a very painful adolescence. Now, I know all of you in the audience here may remember when you were going through adolescence, how painful it was, how awkward you felt. You weren't a child anymore, but you were not an adult yet. My adolescence was painful as hell. I remember it vividly. Made a lot of mistakes. But the entire race is going through a stage of development here where we're going through this adolescence, and it is painful, and it is awkward. My God, read the morning newspapers. Look at the television if you have the courage. I've almost given up watching TV. I just can't stand it. Tribal warfare, bloodshed here, there, and everywhere. Americans kill 50,000 people every year on their highways. Then you have the Shiites and the Sunnis in the Middle East butchering each other. Then you have the Israelis and the Palestinians butchering each other. Then you have the Indians and the Pakistanis here armed to the teeth with nuclear weapons, looking at each other, ready to pull the triggers at any time. And you think, good God, is there any hope for this race, for this species? Well, I will tell you there is, because we have some good friends in high places. And something I have seldom ever shared with anybody, for a lot of good reasons, is I have met some of them face to face. And while I'm on this roll, I will tell you that I have been aboard their ships. I have been invited. I have been a guest. And I feel very comfortable about it because these are family. I say we have good friends in high places. These people are family. The ones that I've met and the ones that I've related with are just like you and I. In a sense, they look just like us. They could be sitting in the audience next to you out here tonight. And I've been at a number of conferences over the years where there have been one or two or maybe several extraterrestrials sitting right alongside the people in the audience. Now, they didn't attend those conferences to listen to what the speakers had to say. They attended the conferences to see how the audience responded to what the speakers had to say. They've been monitoring us for so long. I will tell you, this is another blunt, heartbreaking kind of story. Every major religion on this planet has been initiated and orchestrated by advanced extraterrestrial intelligence. Now, if you don't think that is a zinger for people to deal with. I'm not a religious person. I do not attend church. I'm not affiliated with an organized religion. I like to think of myself, however, as being deeply spiritual, because I recognize the spark of divinity that burns deep within the heart of every one of you. You are divinity itself. 2,000 years ago, I had an old dear friend. He is still my best friend. He was a Jewish rabbi in Galilee 2,000 years ago. And Giorgio and I have discussed this over the years. This is a man I deeply love here. Bon Giovanni, old friend. But I have learned the reality of reincarnation. I know I have lived before. I have lived many, many lives before. Practically every one of you also have had lived lives before. You were alive before you incarnated into this body. You are alive tonight, and you will be alive when the body dies. Because when your body dies, you don't die. You are an immortal being. You are a being of light. You are a spark of pure divinity itself. And this is some of the stuff I've learned over the years in my relationship with them, in my friendship with them. Some lessons I've been taught when I've been aboard their ship. So I'm hopeful about the future. I know that we've been going through some difficult times during this racial adolescence we've been enduring. It's not over yet, but we're nearing the completion of it. There are still a few bumps along the road yet that we have to endure. There's still some bloodshed to be endured. There's some heartbreak. This old planet, this beautiful world we live on, this living Gaia goddess, is a planet we should treasure more. Have got some experiences in store for us in the next few years. My God, in the last few months, earthquakes, volcanoes, tidal waves. Good people, you haven't seen anything yet. There's going to be a lot more of that. A heartbreaking tragedy in Banda Aceh a few years back when the tidal wave killed 200,000 people. My God, what's the latest total in Haiti? Over 200,000, I think. This is going to continue for a time because the planet itself, Gaia, the goddess, this living sphere that we live on, she is alive. Gentlemen, would you bring up my first slide, please? I like to throw these pictures up there because I like to use it as a reference point. The latest estimates that NASA has come up with is that there are over 200,000 stars in our galaxy alone. They've also concluded that there are over 200,000 galaxies in the known universe. And the evidence that we have collected, which has never been released, is that this space is literally teeming with advanced intelligent life. Scientists estimate that there are 10 million planets in our galaxy alone that are suitable for what we call human life. 10 million planets with advanced, intelligent creatures on them. Creatures very much like us. You have to forgive me. I've got so damn many things I would like to say in such a little bit of time to say it. We've learned these things over the years, and I've been sitting on top of some of this information because it was under a National Security Act. And I'm now beginning at my latter painful years to say some things that I've been sitting on top of that I refused to talk about for so long. Now, we talked about the fact that we knew, the military learned and the intelligence people knew. By the time I retired in 1976 from the Army, we were dealing with at least 4 different groups. They were all humanoid, but 2 were practically human. As I said, they could sit next to you in an auditorium or in an airplane or at a restaurant, and you would never know. I've had them come up to me at a conference from time to time, compliment me on a presentation, smiling, shaking hands, asking me why I felt this subject was so important, I even have friends who are fundamentalists who still consider me a friend. God bless them. After what I'm saying tonight, they may not feel the same way. So, 100 million stars, 100 billion, 200 billion. Nobody can deal with figures like that except the guys who deal with the United States national debt. Those are the only people who can handle these kinds of figures. People in the United States that are dealing with the national debt are now up into the trillions of dollars. We're spending money we don't even have. But why are these people here? Why are these advanced species so interested in us? Well, first of all, they genetically engineered us from a lower form about 200,000 years ago. The genetic manipulation, the genetic program is still underway. Why do they really care about us? Why do they put up with us? Well, to them, we're a long-term program. As I said, we are an unfinished product. We are a work in progress. And as I deeply respect old von Daniken, have for years, I've known him for 20 years. And he talks about the ancient astronauts are going to be coming back. And I've said to Eric, and I will say to you, they never left. They've been here from the beginning. They do not involve themselves with our lives overtly anymore. They used to, but now they are involved with us covertly. Let me tell you that this is a fact. There are 4 major extraterrestrial facilities on planet Earth that we know about. 4 major extraterrestrial facilities where they have massive operations underway. There is a major ET facility underneath Mount Hayes in Alaska, the southern part of Alaska, in the United States. There is a major extraterrestrial facility inside Mount Perdido in the Pyrenees between France and Spain. There is a major extraterrestrial facility underground in Zimbabwe, which has apparently been there for God knows how many thousands of years. And this is the clinker. There is a major extraterrestrial facility underground in the middle of Australia at a place called Pine Gap. Now, interestingly enough, the United States National Security Agency built one of its largest NSA facilities right on top of the alien facility, which is underground at Pine Gap. And so apparently there is some very close relationship going on between the guys underneath and the guys on top. Or we wouldn't have built the place in the middle of Australia. Interestingly enough, our most talented remote viewers have concluded that the underground facility at Pine Gap is what is known as an R&R facility. Now, for those of you who are not familiar with that military term, it's a term that the Army uses in the Navy. R&R, rest and relaxation. The facility they have underneath the ground at Pine Gap apparently is an R&R facility for them. Now, I've pointed out several times that when you're dealing with human beings, you need some rest and relaxation sometimes. You need to get the hell away from it, because dealing with human beings can be very tiring. I find that to be so. Can you imagine an advanced member of an incredibly advanced civilization wandering around on this planet where we're conducting tribal warfare and butchering each other and stealing each other blind? My God, you've got to get away from it sometimes. So they have an R&R facility. Bless them, they deserve it. Okay, there's another couple of things that I need to talk about, and I have a slide presentation which is rather extensive. It takes about an hour and a half, close to 2 hours. If you're interested in it, you could probably Google me on your computer. And you can pick up, I'm sure, some of the presentations I've made where I've shown the actual photographs of the ships, the enormous, gigantic extraterrestrial. I hate the word alien because it's not an appropriate term. Alien just doesn't apply to these guys. They're family, for God's sake. They're cousins. Anyhow, in these slideshows that I have presented from time to time, last July in Barcelona, I was invited and was pleased to be able to put on a presentation and show some slides. There's a slide that I show, which you can pick up on the web if you Google the Barcelona conference. A photograph that I got from the Japanese Space Agency, taken by Apollo 13 during the Apollo program. And as Apollo 13 was on their way to the moon, they ran into a lot of heavy traffic out there. So a couple of the astronauts grabbed their cameras and began snapping little pictures through their windows of that little capsule that they were in. And what did they take pictures of? All kinds of things happening around them. Large domed discs flying all around. Click, click, they got a picture. An object 5 miles long following them on the way to the moon. Click, click, they got a picture. Got a couple of pictures, not just one, they got 2 at least, maybe more. Now, NASA has never, ever released pictures of this magnitude. And you can understand why. NASA doesn't want you to know that there are craft in orbit between the Earth and the Moon that are 5 miles long. My son spent his career in the Navy. He just retired here last November, a year ago November. Most of the years he spent in the Navy, he was on aircraft carriers. I've been privileged to be aboard some of those carriers as a guest. Nimitz-class carriers, American aircraft carriers, are 1,000 feet long, nuclear-powered. They can go to sea and they don't have to come to shore for refueling for at least 5 to 8 years. They're supplied food and necessities while they're out at sea. On a nuclear carrier of that size that's 1,000 feet long, there's a crew of 5,000 men. Now this to me, being an old-fashioned old fart as I am, a crew on a ship of 5,000 men, I found kind of staggering. United States nuclear carriers, Nimitz class, 1,000 feet, 5,000 men in the crew. We look at the picture of this object in space between the Earth and the Moon, 5 miles long. Now, can you imagine the crew that that object might have? Boggles the mind. But being as advanced as they are, and being as technical ability that they have, they may not need crews that large. Hell, they may be a couple of dozen guys can run that damn thing. But we've been taking pictures. NASA has been photographing things over the last few years that literally boggle the mind. But they aren't about to let them out. They're scared to death to share them with you because they think, you know, you guys can't handle that sort of thing. Might upset you. You might go running crazily through the streets, for God's sake. Alien craft, 5 miles long. Well, that's not the crux of the story. In the late 1970s, NASA scientists and astronomers had discovered that just some strange things were going on in the moons and the rings of Saturn. Now, Saturn, as you know, is a giant planet, one of the giant gas planets out there. But they had been picking up things that they'd been photographing out in the rings of Saturn and the moons of Saturn. So what did they do? They put together a spacecraft they called Voyager. And they sent Voyager 1 out towards Saturn in 1980. And what did they find? They found artificially constructed self-luminous objects the size of our moon moving around in the rings of Saturn under obviously intelligent control. Not only that, they found an artificially constructed ship, machine, city, 2,000 miles long in the rings of Saturn. They said, NASA, my God, we can't release this. We can't tell the people this. Think what it'll do to their stability, their sense of well-being. Well, I happen to have made friends with a retired NASA scientist by the name of Norman Berggren, who wrote a book after he retired. Norman was involved in the Voyager 1 program in 1980. He had seen the photographs. He expected them to be released. He retired in 1984. They had not been released. They weren't even about to release it. So what did Norman Berggren do? He trogies over to Scotland. It's the only place he could find a publisher who would touch his book with the photographs. Couldn't get it published in the United States. I wonder why. He had to go to Scotland, for God's sake, to get his book published. And he published a beautiful little book filled with photographs called The Ring Makers of Saturn. And I think a few copies probably are still available. You could probably go to Amazon, find a copy of Norman's book. Of course, you may have to pay a few dollars for it by now, because they're really collector's items. But The Ring Makers of Saturn by Norman Berggren, published in Scotland in 1986. It's filled with photographs of these artificially constructed extraterrestrial alien craft in the moons and the rings of Saturn. Ladies and gentlemen, what we are apparently dealing with this particular group, and it's very likely one of the groups we are relating with and dealing with, is what Michio Kaku, the brilliant physicist in New York City, would call a Type 2 civilization. Now, Type 1 civilization is a civilization that can monitor and use the energy of a planet. Type 2 civilization is an advanced culture that can monitor and utilize the energy of a solar system. I have to point out to you that you are members of a Type 00 civilization. Not that you didn't know that, of course. I'm sure you did. We're getting there. We're making progress. Maybe in another 100 years, if we can abolish these stupid things we're doing, like tribal war, killing each other, fighting each other over religion. My God's better than your God. No, 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 my God's better than your God. I'll kill you because you're an infidel. So, they do that in the name of their God. And you wonder why I'm not a deeply religious person. I don't play games like that. I think of myself as a deeply spiritual person because I've learned from own experiences of my own over the last few years that I am an immortal being. I lived before I incarnated on this planet. I'm living now, if you call this living, with gumpy knees and bad hips and sore shoulders, but I lived before, I'm living now, and I will live again after. Because when this body finally decides that it's had enough, it's begun to breaking down already. Bits and pieces are, I'm thinking of going back to the factory for some refitting. I even have a list of parts that I would like to have replaced. But I won't go into the details there. It might embarrass me. But that's nothing to worry about. I know that I and you are infinite, immortal beings, that you, each and every one of you, carry that spark of divinity within you. That beautiful man in Galilee 2,000 years ago tried to tell us, "You are as gods," he said. "What I do, you can do, and even more." He says, "I came into this world to bring you the truth." Good Lord, well, look what they did to him. They hung him, killed him. But he didn't die. He was resurrected by his Father. He walked the earth and he ascended. And as Giorgio points out, he made a promise that he was coming back. I'm not the slightest doubt about that truth. I would like to be here when he comes back. I'd like to go out and greet him. But it's not important, because once I cross over, I'll be with him on the other side anyhow. Maybe I'll come back with him. I have to ask you to forgive me. Excuse me, I've been rambling here a bit, because I'm about as tired as many of you are, I'm sure. It's been a long program. I wanted to leave you with a couple of points here. I pointed out to you that you are infinite, immortal beings. I always loved the Hindu Sanskrit term, the dweller within, the imprisoned splendor. That one I like. the imprisoned splendor, which is what you really are inside that shell of a body. I want to tell you that the future is not over. I want to tell you, if any of you have been troubled by the so-called stories about 2012, and people ask me what I think of 2012, and I have to pause because I don't want to say something rude. Being an old infantry type, I find that rudeness sometimes pops up out of my mouth when I least want it to. But when you ask about 2012, the end of the world, nonsense. Poppycock. Balderdash, as my old British ancestors used to say. God bless you, young man. Thank you. Balderdash, I always liked that one. About 19th century Great Britain had that one. That helps. So where were we? We talked about the fact that my country, and the British at least, I know that to be a fact. I think the Germans and the French unofficially are in relationship with them. I happen to know the fact that they are in an intimately close relationship with several of the United States aerospace corporations. They're in a relationship with several of the United States intelligence agencies. And I've learned that in this old story about disclosure, are we going to have disclosure? Will the president, will poor old Barack Obama have a press conference and call everybody and say, "Oh, we got a story to tell you. Ooh, wow, what a tale." That ain't going to happen, guys. It's not the sort of thing that government can accomplish. There's not going to be a news conference and a press conference of disclosure. We're in an intimate relationship with extraterrestrials. Been having it now for 50 years, but we were afraid to let you know because, you guys are very sensitive. You tend to run off on these tangents. We kept it from you. Nonsense. Ain't going to happen. But I want to tell you, and fairly get close to my end of my little presentation here, disclosure is taking place now. There is a form of disclosure that is underway, even as we speak. It's what I like to call subliminal education. The hard-nosed guys in Madison Avenue and in the military in Washington and the intelligence people call it psychotronic persuasion. It's kind of a cold-blooded term. They're persuading you psychotronically with the media, electronically, radio, television, whatever. I like the more gentle form of it as kind of a subliminal education. Well, that is underway. It has been underway for at least 20 years, if not longer. And it's going to continue, and it's going to be continually ramped up so that you're going to see more and more that's going to kind of hit you at a below your conscious awareness. And you're being educated. You're being educated to buy the cookies they want you to buy, the soft drinks that they want you to drink, the candy and the goodies, and you're being led and prodded and directed into all these directions to buy their products and to accept their political decisions and to put more nitwits in office every time there's an election. My God, I just turned on the tube today looking at CNN about what's going on in Washington, D.C., in my country, and I thought, oh God, they're practically rolling in the aisles fighting with each other over this health care bill. In my country, we have a saying, you got the best government money can buy, so enjoy it. And that's true. Money happens to be the root of a great deal of evil. So I ask you to forgive me for rambling here. My regular presentation I was not able to give because I didn't have the time. But you can see my pictures, the slides that I have, the photographs that I have, the pictures from Norman Bergman's book on Voyager, 1980, Voyager 1. The photograph taken by Apollo 13 on the way to the moon. We've got a Class 2, Type 2 civilization in our solar system, on our planet, all around us. And we've had it for thousands of years. And you people are going through a transition that is painful, but ultimately glorious. You're going to succeed, you're going to make it, because you've got a spark of immortal divinity within you. But as I said, there's going to be some difficult times ahead. You're going to see some more of this heartbreak, bloodshed. The kids have not got all of the wrinkles ironed out of their little problems. Many of these nations and clans and sub-clans still have got some lessons to learn. They've got to stop killing each other in the name of God, because they are sparks of God themselves. So as I said, the years ahead are going to be difficult and going to be more awkward things happening. It's going to be sad. But I want you to have some hope. I want you to understand something, that it's going to come out all right. That there is a plan. Believe me, there is a plan. Your being here is not a vast accident. You're not just something that happened along the way. You're part of a growth, a plan, a development system. There is a purpose, there is a meaning to life, there is a meaning to our being here on this beautiful planet. Let me have the second slide, please. Hello? There? I love these pictures. This is the neighborhood we live in. This is where we came from. It's where we're going back to again. Next slide. Next slide, please. Ah, there she is. Beautiful Gaia. Our Greek and Roman ancestors deified her. They said she's a living goddess. I tend to kind of accept that, I look at that beautiful lady, and she's all we've got. And I know that she has a heart. She has a respiratory system. She has a circulatory system. She's a living, beautiful goddess. And we have got to take better care of her. I have been told, and we have learned officially, that information has not been released. That beautiful lady is probably the richest and ripest zoological garden in our galaxy. Now, and I just told you that you're living in a zoological garden. I just told you you're living in a zoo. Yes, you are. She is one of the richest and ripest zoological gardens in the galaxy. They treasure her. They treasure us, because we're all a part of the same living, developing entity. There's no accident here. All this didn't happen. This whole thing is a result of a plan. And then I've learned in my own out-of-body experiences, near-death experiences, out-of-body excursions, I have learned beyond a doubt that there is a God. Don't ask me to explain it. Don't ask me to describe it. Don't ask me to give it a name. There is a Creator behind the creation that we are all a part of. There is a living, immortal, infinite power. The universe is literally a living thing itself. You are immersed in an ocean of consciousness, which you are a part of. There is a Creator, there is a God, there is a purpose, there is a meaning to all of this. And for me, that's all I need to know. I don't merely believe this, people. I know, because I've experienced it. Next slide, last slide, please. Your grandchildren and your great-grandchildren are going to the stars. I've been out there. It's changed my life in such ways I can't even begin to explain to you. But your children are going to the stars, and the human race, once it's finished this troublesome, painful, transcendent transformation into a new species, the future is unlimited. You're going to the stars. You're going to go out there and you're going to take your rightful place in an infinite universe filled with infinite intelligent life. You're going to take your rightful place as human beings on planet Earth. But again, we're not there yet. I want to leave you with a quote that's one of my favorites. When I get depressed over the years, and I've had a few good reasons for getting depressed from time to time. As I said, I fought in 2 brutal, savage, bloody wars, had 2 broken marriages, lost a child to suicide. Most of my old friends are gone. I get kind of low now and then. I tend to become a little bit melancholy, I believe is the appropriate word. But I'm encouraged and inspired by words of one of my favorite authors. And I want to leave this with you. I want you to take this with you tonight. Count Leo Tolstoy, one of the great minds of 19th century Russia. He said, there is something in the human spirit that will survive and will prevail. He said, there is a tiny and brilliant light burning in the heart of man that will not go out, no matter how dark the world becomes. And in the spirit of that spark, in the spirit of that light that's burning deep within each and every one of you, I want to say to each and every one of you, God bless you. I love you. Good night.
Robert Dean recibe un reconocimiento de Jaime Maussan.
A standing ovation for Bob Dean. Thank you very much, my friend. I knew you could do exactly what you did. You would excite the people. Yo sabía que ibas a hacer lo que has hecho, emocionar a la gente.
What I did.
To excite, to make think, and really inspire for our future.
I have not said a thing tonight Oh, I have not said a thing tonight that each and every one of you didn't already know in your hearts.
Dice que no ha dicho nada que esta noche que no hayan sabido ya ustedes en su corazón. Anyway, thank you very much, my friend.
My pleasure. Oh, thank you.
That's a recognition for you. Okay.
Thank you.
Desde la antigüedad, el ser humano ha observado el cielo, tratando de descifrar los misterios de esta guarda. ¿Será posible que el cosmos esté poblado por seres inteligentes? Nosotros tenemos